Privyet. Hello everyone. You're on the Slavic News Channel, and in this video, we'll discuss the most significant updates on the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. We have a lot of interesting updates, so let's begin. First, we're going to talk about the Bryansk direction. According to information we have during the previous night, the Ukrainians conducted many attempts to cross the border and to answer the Bryansk direction in the Klimova region. That attack was repelled, according to the Russian sources. First, the Russians were saying that this was one sabotage and reconnaissance group who made the attempts, and later we got additional details about that attack. The Ukrainians introduced around 200 soldiers and significant number of vehicles in this direction. The attack was repelled, but it doesn't mean that the Ukrainians are going to stop. Most likely during the upcoming day, the Ukrainians will continue making attempts to capture additional territories now along the border with Belarus and Russia. Later, the official Telegram channel of the group of forces North stated and gave a report about the situation. They clarified the number of Ukrainians involved in that attack was around 200 soldiers. And the most important statement is that Ukrainians have concentrated along the border with the Bryansk region. So this is the Bryansk region with the border with Kursk region, and with the border with Belgrade region around 33% of their entire army that can conduct a successful offensive operation. 33% of Ukrainian forces are concentrated exactly in this point, and the Russians are saying that they have no doubts that the Ukrainians in the very near future are going to begin a full-scale offensive operation in the Bryansk direction, and they will continue offensive operation in the Kursk direction, and that Ukrainians are planning to continue their offensive operation in Belgrade direction. This operation will be like an ultimatum to Vladimir Putin to begin the negotiation process and to restore control of the constitutional order of the 1991 territory. Now let's move to the Sudza direction. We have additional updates from this territory. During the previous night, the Russian sources published the video of how they were FPV droning the Ukrainians inside of the village by the name of Komarovka. This video confirms the presence of armored forces of Ukraine on the territory of the village, and based on this video, we have adjusted the map and added additional territory under complete Ukrainian control. As for different mappers, for example, pro-Ukrainian mappers show control over the territory between Kornivo itself, Vishnevka, Snagas for the Ukrainians. So we have adjusted the map, we have adjusted this part as contested area. Furthermore, we continue receiving a lot of updates from the village of Algavka from the main road between Kornivo and the mainland of significant number of FPV droning attacks on Ukrainian forces. Ukraine suffers significant losses, but they are not stopping. Very interesting video we got from the road between Zuravli and Kremano. This video was published by the Ukrainian sources, and in this video, we can see the damaged Russian tank as a result of an FPV drone strike from the Ukrainian side. The thing is that according to the map of Sursky, this territory is already under complete Ukrainian control, including the village of Stepnikovka. But now we see that there is a Russian tank, and now we have some doubts whether the Ukrainians do have control over Stepnikovka, or the Russians conducted a series of counteroffensive on the line Kremano-Stepnikovka with the purpose to cut the Ukrainian forces on the territory of Zuravli and to cut the Ukrainian forces who are currently located along the railways, trying to establish or create a cauldron for the Ukrainian forces. So let's wait to what is going to be next, but obviously something interesting might happen in this direction. And I'm talking that the Ukrainians might be encircled. Now let's talk about the village of by the name of Nechayev. Today, the Russian sources published the video of from inside of the village, we see a Russian squad Arbot what group of forces and these soldiers were saying that as a result of clashes they managed to secure and to restore control over the village by the name of Nechayev. Since the beginning of the Kursk offensive operation, we haven't received even a single report that the Ukrainians managed to enter this territory. But now we got a report that the Russians managed to restore. Most likely the Ukrainians entered the territory with the sabotage and reconnaissance group. But this is very interesting. So let's wait for additional updates, and maybe we will adjust the map in the very near future. Now let's move to the eastern Sudzha direction. Today we got some updates from different mappers. According to them, the village of Kalmykov and the territory between Cherkasko-Konopelko and Agronom was captured by the Ukrainians. Furthermore, we continue receiving videos from the village of Rusko-Konopelko. There are very heavy clashes right now there. The Russians during the previous night were bombing this territory heavily. Ukrainian soldiers were discovered on the territory of the village, which confirms that either the territory is in the contested area or already the southwestern part was already captured by the Ukrainians. In this video, we can see the Russian reconnaissance drone flying above the ruins of the village. We see a very big fire anomaly with significant number of houses that were destroyed. And this video confirms that there are very heavy clashes, and most likely the Russians would be forced to fall back under the pressure of the armored forces of Ukraine. Now let's move further, and then let's talk about the Pokrovsk and the other directions. As for the Pokrovsk direction, we have additional changes on the ground. The Ukrainian sources published the video how they were counterattacking the Russian forces from the village of Grodovka to the south. In this video, we can see the armored vehicle of 151st Mechanized Brigade of the Armored Forces of Ukraine. They were counterattacking the Russians to the south of Grodovka. And this video shown us the line of combat contact and the edge geolocated and confirmed Russian positions. So the Ukrainian vehicle was moving from the north from the city of Grodovka. The Ukrainian vehicle got this line, and then he reached these positions and this position. And from this position, the Ukrainians were attacking these three lines. This video confirms that these three lines and the territory to the southeast of this area was completely captured by the Russians. We have adjusted the map. During the previous night, we got additional updates about the Russian progress inside of the village of Grodovka. And according to different mappers, the Russians managed to improve their positions and to capture everything until the Pushkino Street. This information was confirmed by different neutral mappers. Now let's talk about Novogradovka. During the previous night, we start receiving updates about the clashes on the territory of the city itself. Pro-Russian sources reported significant progress in the southeastern part of the city. And later, this information was confirmed also by neutral sources. So summarizing everything during the previous 12 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions along the railways and to enter the first blocks of the city. Currently, the Russians entered the low-rise building area and reached the high-rise citadel in the southeastern part of the Novogradovka. Now, everything depends on how fast the Russians are able to move through this part. If they are able to do this very fast, then the entire Novogradovka will fall very soon. Now let's talk about the southern direction. During the previous 12 hours, we got additional updates from different mappers. Pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed additional progress of the armored force of Russian Federation. And during the previous 12 hours, the Russians captured all these fields and forced the Ukrainians to fall back. The Ukrainians suffer significant problems with supply and support due to the fact that the Russians control the supply lines, turning them into the death roads. So the Ukrainians are falling back towards more reliable positions. But currently, nobody can tell for sure where exactly the more or less reliable positions are. And furthermore, we got reports from pro-Russian sources that the Russians have also established complete control over the village of Tish. But we still haven't received anything that can confirm this, neither the video geolocations nor the changes on the ground from different mappers. Anyway, there are very heavy clashes. The Ukrainians are falling back without any chances to slow down or to stop the Russians. Now let's move further. We continue receiving updates from Ugledar direction. During the previous night, the Russians published additional batch of videos of how they were bombing the coal mines. The Russians are preparing the foothold before the full-scale ground operation. So let's wait what is going to be next. Very interesting details are coming from Konstantinovka. Today, the Telegram channel of the 79th Air Assault Brigade published the video that there is a panic between the officers and the commanders of the 79th Brigade. They are running from one apartment to another. They are running from one room to another. And later there was a post from the same brigade that most likely the panic situation among the officers of 79th Brigade is connected with the Russian flag that was raised somewhere in Konstantinovka. So most likely today we're going to receive the first video with the Russian flag from a very, very unexpected place, which will force mappers to adjust maps significantly in, of course, Russian favor. Now let's move further. Let's talk about the Chasov Yar direction. The Russians have paused the situation completely. We just continue receiving different updates of FAB strikes in the territory. But according to information we have currently, the Russians are not moving inside of the territory of the Chasov Yar. Now the Russians continue their attempts to improve the flanks to the north through the village of Kalinovo towards the village of Orko-Vasilivka and Grigorovka. During the previous night, according to different sources, the Russians improved their positions and answered this small forest and began clearing this territory. Most likely, even before additional progress in Chasov Yar, the Russians will try to capture the village of Grigorovka. And that's it for this update. Slavic News Channel condemn any violence in the world. Thanks for watching and please like and subscribe.